The screech of tires echoed across the empty valley. A black Bentley, speeding down a winding country road. Then, the front wheel blew. The car spun. It crashed through a wooden fence, rolled twice, and slammed into an old oak tree. Inside, a man, blood trickling down his forehead, eyes wild with panic. He screamed into the empty air. "Help me! Somebody help me!" An elderly farmer heard the crash. 67 years old, silver hair, hands rough from decades of honest work. He ran toward the wreck as fast as his legs could carry him. "Hold on, mister. I'm coming. Don't move." He reached through the shattered window. His weathered fingers stretched toward the injured man. And the billionaire slapped his hand away. "Get your hands off me." The billionaire's voice dripped with disgust. "Look at you. You smell like pig manure. Don't you dare touch my suit with those filthy hands. This jacket costs more than your entire worthless farm." The farmer's jaw tightened, but his eyes stayed soft. The billionaire kept going. "Call someone who matters. A real doctor, not some uneducated hick who probably can't read." The farmer slowly pulled his hands back. "Sir, you're bleeding badly. Please let me help." "I said get away." The billionaire's teeth were stained with his own blood. "You're not fit to breathe the same air as me." The farmer stepped back. His boots crunched on the broken glass beneath his feet. His name was Harold Meyers. 40 years ago, Harold was one of the most celebrated trauma surgeons on the East Coast. His hands had saved governors, athletes, ordinary people who had no one else. He had everything: a penthouse in Manhattan, a summer home in the Hamptons, invitations to galas where champagne flowed like water. And then he met Dorothy Jean Carter. She was a baker's daughter from this very town. She never cared about Harold's money. She never cared about his fame. She loved him for the way he laughed, for the way he held her hand during thunderstorms. 15 years ago, Dorothy was diagnosed with a degenerative illness. The doctors gave her 2 years. Harold made a decision that stunned everyone who knew him. He sold everything: the penthouse, the cars, the vacation homes. He bought this small farm where Dorothy had grown up, and he vowed to spend every remaining day by her side. The medical community called him a fool. His colleagues said he was throwing away his legacy. But Harold didn't care about legacy. He only cared about her. She was doing everything she could to hold on, and he was doing everything he could to give her one more sunrise, one more laugh, one more kiss goodnight. She was his whole world, and that world was fading. He had given up everything for the woman he loved, but he had no idea that in just a few moments, his sacrifice would be tested in a way he never imagined. If you believe true love still exists, press the like button now. Harold stood in that field, watching the stranger who had just insulted him, writhing in pain. And despite every cruel word, he made a choice. He walked back to the car. This time, he carried a first aid kit from his barn. "Sir, I don't care what you think of me, but if you don't let me help you, you're going to die in that car." The billionaire's face twisted with disgust. "You help me? I'm Richard Calloway. I own half of this state. I have doctors on speed dial who went to Harvard." Harold opened the first aid kit, pulled out gauze. Richard sneered at him. "What is that? Some veterinary kit. Did you use that on your cows this morning?" Harold said nothing. His jaw muscle twitched, but he stayed silent. Richard Calloway was a name everyone knew. Real estate, tech investments, political connections. He had built an empire on ambition and intimidation. He had never been told no. He had never apologized. And he had never once considered that someone beneath his tax bracket could have any value at all. Richard tried to reach for his phone. He winced in pain. "My phone. Where's my phone? I need to call my lawyer. I'm going to sue whoever built this road. I'm going to sue you for not having proper signage on your pathetic little property." Harold noticed the growing pool of blood beneath Richard's seat. "Sir, you have internal bleeding. I can see it. You have maybe 30 minutes before you go into shock. The nearest hospital is 45 minutes away. There's no time." Richard laughed bitterly. "And what are you going to do about it? Old MacDonald? Pray over me." Harold closed his eyes. Just for a moment. He took a breath. In the farmhouse window, a lamp flickered. Dorothy was watching. Harold thought of her. She was waiting for him. Tonight could be her last night. The hospice nurse had called that morning, with the news he had been dreading. But Harold Meyers had taken an oath once. An oath he had never broken. I'm going to save your life, whether you want me to or not. He pulled Richard from the wreckage, carried him toward the barn. Richard's voice was getting weaker. What are you doing? This is kidnapping. I'll have you arrested. Inside the barn, it was clean, organized. An old surgical table sat in the center, covered in white cloth. What Richard didn't know was that Harold had kept this table. He had sterilized it every week for 15 years, just in case Dorothy ever needed emergency care. And now, those hands that Richard had called filthy were the only hands that could save him. Harold washed his hands. Methodically, the movements were precise, automatic. He picked up a scalpel. Richard's eyes went wide. Wait. What? What are you doing? Where did you learn? Harold's voice was calm, focused. Johns Hopkins, class of 1979. Chief of Trauma Surgery at New York Presbyterian for 22 years. Richard's arrogance crumbled, replaced by shock. You're a doctor? I was. Now hold still. This is going to hurt. For 2 hours. Harold operated. Under a single hanging light bulb. Sweat on his brow. He repaired a lacerated spleen. He stopped the internal bleeding. He stitched wounds with thread he had sterilized himself. His hands, covered in blood, finally set down the needle. Richard Calloway would live. Harold stepped out of the barn. He looked toward the farmhouse. The lamp in Dorothy's window had gone dark. The hospice nurse stood on the porch. Her head was bowed, while Harold was saving the life of a man who despised him. His wife of 43 years had taken her last breath. Alone, Harold's knees buckled. He caught himself on the barn door. His lips trembled. His eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. Richard, pale and bandaged, watched from the barn doorway. He saw Harold walking toward the house. And in that moment, Richard Calloway understood what he had done. He had mocked this man. He had called him worthless. And this man had sacrificed the most precious moment of his life to save a stranger who didn't deserve it. If this story has touched your heart, please subscribe to join our family for more stories like this. 3 days later, a small funeral in the farm's meadow. Wildflowers everywhere. They buried Dorothy beneath the oak tree where Harold had proposed 50 years earlier. Harold stood alone at the grave, holding a single white rose. A black car pulled up the dirt road. Richard Calloway stepped out, walking with a cane. He had checked himself out of the hospital against medical advice. There was somewhere he needed to be. He approached Harold slowly, stopped a few feet away. His voice broke. Mr. Meyers. Harold didn't turn around. He kept facing the grave. Richard spoke again. I don't have words. I've spent my whole life believing that money made me better than other people. That success meant I didn't need to be kind. He fell to his knees in the grass. His expensive suit stained with dirt. You saved my life. And I took away your chance to say goodbye to your wife. Harold finally turned. His eyes were red, but his face was peaceful. You didn't take anything, Mr. Calloway. I made a choice. The same choice I would make again. He knelt beside Richard, helped him up. Dorothy spent her whole life teaching me that every person has value, even the ones who don't see it in themselves yet. Richard's chin trembled. Tears streamed down his face. She would have wanted me to save you. That's who she was. 2 men, standing in a meadow, the sunset casting long shadows behind them. Richard Calloway returned to his empire, but he was not the same man. He shook hands with employees. He listened, instead of shouting. He saw people, for the first time in his life. He established the Dorothy Meyers Foundation, funding rural medical clinics across the country. He visited Harold every month, until Harold passed peacefully 5 years later. 2 graves now sit side by side, beneath that old oak tree, wildflowers blooming all around them. And in his will, Richard Calloway left his entire fortune, every cent of the $3 billion. To continue the foundation's work, a new medical clinic opened in a small town. The ribbon was cut, and above the door, a plaque. It read, "In honor of a farmer who taught a billionaire that the measure of a man is not what he owns, but what he gives." Harold Meyers never sought recognition. He never wanted fame. He only wanted to love his wife. And in doing so, he changed the heart of a man who thought he was beyond saving. He learned that money can build hospitals, but only compassion can heal souls. What would you have done if you were in Harold's shoes? Would you have saved the man who insulted you, even if it meant losing your final moments with someone you loved? Tell us in the comments below. And if this story reminded you of someone with a beautiful heart, share it with them today.